Welcome back, my warriors. Anyone and all of you who have joined with me at this juncture in this long journey we've gone on together, experiencing all the things we've experienced together, seeing all these things and thinking them all. Today, chapter 54. The last chapter. The end of the book. Here we are. I drink mead that I myself brewed. Wear a cloak of white fur over my cloak, which still smells of smoke. Wear a hammer. I have the runes upon me. Now I welcome you all to join in this moment with me. Chapter 54. The Battle of Stamford Bridge. September the 25th, 1066. Oh, then, All-Father, bless me with this mead of inspiration. Give to me a tongue for the telling of this story. Let's go on. The morning dawned on the day of the fall, and the birds sang in the growing heat of the morning. Fitbjorn had risen and stood before the fire to speak with his gods. He had eaten an enormous amount of breakfast. He'd washed himself in the bowl and combed out his long hair. Now he drank the last of the cafe Sigurd had given him. "My father, Odin," he sputtered, the foul black liquid to go and sizzle in the great fire before him. All seemed to contrast, of dark shadowy black and wild furious bright orange of the flames. "Dear mother of Minfrick, All-Father Odin, Thor, the Thunderer, and all those he called Brothir, see me now." He felt such a strange moment on him. Fitbjorn smelled the steam rising off the cafe as it warmed his hands and as the heat of the day began. Today would start his new hunt. Harold would be his first target, and then the other. His destiny was to hunt the rest of his life. His vengeance was everything to him now. He breathed out in a grunt, through clenched teeth, and sprayed more into the flame. The night before, as promised and eventually, Skadhild had drawn for him a rune. He'd known almost, before it was taken, what it would be. When she looked down and told him of the rune Beorth, the rune was of destiny. The rune reflected the recreation, the amusement that the gods took in the fates of people here upon the Midgard. Of course it was. The rune was for his destiny. He felt the rising of the battle fury in him. He shook with it. He wished it were raining this day, that he might have the smoke of water vapor rising off his skin as he felt he should. As hot as his breath was, should be clouding now. Harold Sigurdsson awoke in the morning and rose from his bed. His wife still lay there sleeping. She'd probably spend the day bored and drinking, as she had taken to these last few weeks. He dressed quickly and emerged into the warm shine of the sun of the morning. "It's already so damn hot," he exclaimed, and his personal retinue of attendants all began to offer him something to eat and drink. "It is well we do not have the armor to lug around with us." Then, my king, Einar said, the majority of the army's armor had been left on their ships, which were anchored near a town south of them called Rikal, with some few thousand men standing guard over it in the hot day. Those poor bastards. By all reports, the area was calm, and there would be nothing for the camp to do today but to relax and ready for the rest of the invasion. King Harold of England was too busy in the south, with the threat of William's attack, to meet him. Further, Olaf said, coming forth, yes, my boy. How long are we waiting here? Why don't we just go collect these hostages and continue south to push our claim? After Fulford, the earls had agreed to send forth important hostages, so to make certain they would not attack and retake the lands that Harold had taken, because they need to be seen capitulating to my command, Harold said. Already at 16, the boy was near as tall as his father, and they stood looking at each other before all the men. These English need to know that I do not come to them for rule. They come and lay at my feet. And so we will hold our hostages. It is the way of things. The way you need to learn if you will become king, my son. They both nodded. Yes, father. My lord the king, shouted a messenger. Men approach. Ah, good. This will be them, then. Fitbjorn walked from his camp. His crew of the Inger's Passion and the Brynulf and the lumbering cow were still eating. But something was going on. There was a strange storm churning within his mind, and he felt like he needed to sprint 100 miles or punch a wooden cabin apart. Every one of his senses was alive. He fumed and raged in place. This was it. This was something. He wore only his breeches and leather shoes. His long and oiled black hair flowed down his bare shoulders and back. His body was covered in scars from his life. A Saracen dagger, a Sicilian arrow, a bandit's sword, a Danish hand axe. All the scars forming old lines over his still impressively muscled build. He felt so damn potent today. I have to do it. I have to go to do it. I need to go find a way and do it now. Harold, you die this day. Why is it today? What is this overwhelming readiness? Fitbjorn stalked from his camp and made for the road that led to the king's pavilion. There's no common band come to surrender themselves to hostage, Harold said, looking at the huge plume of dust that showed as haze over the treetops. Have the scouts confirm who it is that is coming? A small twinge of fear spiked in his brain. Wait, I see glinting in the distance there. He peered as far as he could beyond the bridge by the edge of their camp. What the hell is that? Though as he asked, he knew already what it was. They all knew what they were looking at. That's an army, Einar said. My king, that's... England has come. It's impossible. They're miles south in Wessex. No, father, I think he is right. It's England. Harold, the Gudmundsson has come. But his day's away. He has to be. We don't have our armor. What do we do? Asked Theodorfer. Harold stared a moment, stunned. What are your orders? We fight. Without armor? What choice do we have? Dear God. The level of dread and bewilderment in the unshakable king was distressing to all who heard him. Dear God, we're going to be wiped out. How could this happen? Raise the alarm. Everyone called to ready. Get to arm. We fight. We fight. We have to. The warning alarm was called. Fitzbjorn heard it. He turned and looked and saw them. The English had come this far that fast and had sprung their surprise perfectly. They were already charging against the few forces posted at the bridge to guard the west. No, he said, looking back. All his men had no armor with them. The camp, every camp, was in total disarray. They were all going to die. His people. All around him, Norse and Danes and Swedes and Scots ran around in confusion and panic. And there was Harold, not 50 paces from him. The king's men were all scattered around, working to organize pointlessly. Would it not be the easiest thing to go and strangle him right now in this confusion? He could do it. He had decided to do it. He also wore the Ulfbert across his belt. It was his only weapon. He could do it now. Then he saw it. A Norse warrior is running toward him. A Norse warrior with a scarred face he recognized. A face that had been alit with the incredible fires of excitement at the prize he had found. For now the face was of a man who'd killed his friend Harold the Strongarm and had taken the weapon he had been wielding. The man made to run past, and Fitbjorn grabbed him by the arm. He felt like he had all the strength of Thor in this moment. The man nearly tripped to the ground, but rounded and looked at him with unbelieving anger. What the fuck are you doing? We're all going to die. Give me that axe, Fitbjorn commanded. What? This is my axe, the Norse man replied. That is my father's axe. That is the bear spear's axe. That is my fucking axe. Give it to me. You stole it from my friend, but it is mine. Give it to me. The man clearly remembered the moment he'd gained the great axe and froze before the wild man before him. This is my fucking... From below the man's awareness came up Fitbjorn's Ulfbert, and the famous white wolf bit into his neck. Fitbjorn used his grip on the axe haft as leverage and pushed the sword's blade deep, killing the man in quickly. He sent the man to the ground and planted the Ulfbert in the earth, then held again his weapon, his true weapon. Finally, here again he held the axe that his father had pulled from the great white bear. Here was the empowered doom made into steel with the haft of Yggdrasil. And there was nothing now between him and Harald Sigurdsson of Norway. He could run to the man, cut him down with his own father's axe, and be done. His revenge. This was his moment. He saw the warriors, his people, all running around. They would die. Harold had to die. These are my people. Harold has to die. He held oaths to the Swedes, the Danes, the Norse. He could not kill them, and if he chose to kill Harold now, he'd be doing nothing to save them. But what could he do? Fitbjorn stood there, alone, axe in hand, two destinies on either side of him. The warrior stood alone, and one eye opened in the great distance, choosing to watch this moment now above all others. For there was nothing else the warrior bear could do. Fitbjorn turned and faced the English army that were already winning their short skirmish against the forces at the bridge. He held the axe across his body, the weight familiar as his own arm. He turned. Just as he turned to face them with the axe before him, an arrow slammed into the flat side of his father's axe. It would have struck him center in the back had he been facing the other way still. The force impact of the arrow shook him so deeply he bellowed a profound and spirit-filled battle cry. He felt the effect of blood mead coursing into him, though he hadn't had any. The force and the blood of the wolf and the bear powered their way through his whole otter, all his awareness. No longer were the Berserkir and Ulfedner competing for anything within him. They were only there to fight with him. He sprinted for the battle, energy like a blast furnace coursing through him. He arrived at the edge of the bridge as the last of the Northerners were there, killed, and walked calmly to the middle of the wood of the Stamford Bridge. He planted his father's axe before him like a war banner and looked into the glaring eyes of 10,000 English soldiers. You will go no further. The English army were still engaging in moving aside the rest of the warriors who'd been posted at the end of the bridge, and now, like a conquering army, they looked. Their first enemies today were dead, and they were each of them ready to press ahead their victory. 2 young English soldiers, obviously well pleased with the slaughter they had just partaken in, awaited no command and walked quickly across the bridge to take out this last barbarian. The first brought back his sword arm to strike, and the other smirked as he prepared to deliver a second blow. Fitbjorn was impossibly calm in that instant. He watched all things in the world swirl together as the staying cords of light spun in the air in fate. His axe blade, it felt so damn good being back in his hands, slipped up and through the side of the first soldier's neck, deep. With shocked surprise, the man halted in place and stood there, bleeding out his last death bloods. The second man paused a moment at the sudden movement, and before he knew it, the axe was brought down and crashed upon his helm and into his skull. Fitbjorn made no sound, expressed no fury or joy, but the first 2 of his last fight were dead. He resumed his place at the middle of the bridge and stood tall, bare-chested, wide-shouldered, proud, ready. The faces on the enemy soldiers dropped as they saw their fellows die, but changed quickly to fury as they shouted their advance and charged. Fools. He stood on the bridge and spun back and forth in a flurry of movement as they came to his blade. The English threw themselves at him. One came with a sword and shield in a covered posture to try and get beyond the axe reach of the great berserker. Fitbjorn swung upward with the haft, knocking up the shield from the bottom and completely breaking the man's guard. Then he kicked him back viciously and sent him sprawling into the others. Fitbjorn had no time to press that advantage into a kill as another circled him from behind that man and struck at him. This he deflected to the side with the haft and turned back fast to strike against the Englishman's arm. He wasn't in position to cut through him with the blade and so only slammed the back of the axe head into his shoulder. But he heard the bone there crunch and the man scream with the horrific blow. There was, of course, no time to celebrate, as another came forth with a spear, hoping to end the threat presented them, and stabbed. In a moment of brilliant clarity, Fitbjorn grabbed the spear haft below the head and twisted, pulling the man off balance and allowing himself the opportunity to elbow him in the face. He, however, caught part of the helm in a strike and felt the pain of bone meeting metal. "You aren't wearing armor," he reminded himself. "So you are slightly faster. Let that be another advantage you have over them in their sheer fucking experience and will." He howled with the battle rage and let go the spear, then wielded the axe in both hands and cut sideways. Another Englishman died. "I don't need to hold them long. Just long enough for the rest of the army to get their armor and ships. They but need to run," he thought, as he punctured another jerkin with the tip of his axe head. The man screamed as he retreated, hands dropping his sword to clutch the wound, and fell to the ground. "Oof!" he yelled, as an arrow punched into his leg left. He took a moment and looked down at the wound. Nothing. It was nothing. The pain was not important. His people were behind him, and he needed to protect them. He'd do so at any cost. Nothing was so important to him that he'd ever abandoned this place. The arrow had passed through the muscle on the outside of the bone. It didn't matter. He cared not at all for Harold or Stephen. His revenge was nothing. Didn't matter. It was gone. All that mattered was the fight. Another pair of English came to end his resistance after he'd been shot through. That was their mistake. "My Lord King," Einar said, panicked. "What do we do?" Harold wasn't listening. He was watching. He was watching. There in the distance stood one man on the bridge, fighting like a god, fighting with the wisdom and dexterity of knowing of Odin. It was breathtaking, awe-inspiring, impossible. It was him. It had to be. "Organize together the army as well as you can. We fight here." "But our armor, sire." "He doesn't need any." The ghost. The black-haired raider. It's him. The last he said to himself. He could not help but to watch. Blood sprayed from his place on the bridge. None of it was his. "The messengers are sent by King. Reinforcements are being called." "Plant again the land ravager. Get everyone together and make a shield wall." Even though he spoke good, clear instruction, he was utterly distracted. "When they cross that bridge, any minute now, they will come right for us. We will not run from this place." Should we reinforce that man? By Christ, I've never seen anyone fight like him. He's a hurricane. No, he'll be dead any moment. We have to stand ready to receive their charge. "Father, we aren't going to send an archer or anything," Olaf said. "He'll be overrun." "He already is overrun. That is his choice." "They're swimming over the river," Theodulf said, recoiling a step. "Shit! We need to reinforce him some," Olaf said. "No! I am keeping the rest of the army." "I am sorry, father." "I can't do that. I need archers with me." He waited not a second for any word from his father, Olaf Harald's son, but ran to gather warriors to aid him in his endeavor. When he and his men arrived, they arrayed a bow shot from the river and started to launch their volley into the massing English rank. It didn't dissuade them from trying to swim to Derwent, but it was something. "By Odin's eye and Tyr's hand, I defy you!" Fitbjorn shouted. "Sifter, look his cunning, Freyjaslaf, Heimdallr's vision. Come then, hoist yourself upon the blade's edge. You, Northern Harold, should have to know my fury." The English before him were stopped, listening to shouting in a language they did not know. "My God, watch me as I die, you fucking English! What do you think your God will do for you?" Every moment of his past, his experience, his power flowed through him and into the English line. There before him were piled 10 English dead already that they had to trip over. He knew that he'd wounded 7 more and held off the attack of another 9 who'd retreated at making no progress. Fitbjorn needed now to delay them. These soldiers were bent on destroying his people, Skadhild and the rest of the longships. He would not let them through. And well, he thought. A sword slash met his shoulder, and he was shocked back to the slate of muff of the fight. There was no well for this. There was only longer. He fought on. Skadhild had to move faster. Her lord and friend was fighting and killing on the bridge alone, and she needed to go and join that fight. There were the crews of his army and of raiders behind her already, readying themselves as well as they could. Fitbjorn was not there to give commands. Ragnar was not there to give command. In his stead, it was only she, the senior among the crews. Take up your arms and your swords and shields. We have no armor, but these shall be our walls. We need to go support the commander. His place there is ours to reinforce. Come, you fighting raiders. Come, and the war with... She was cut off her orders as an arrow struck through her back and threw her to the ground. Gods! She wheezed in pain. She looked down and tried to feel for the arrow protruding from her front, but found nothing. It had struck her in the back and stopped against the inside of her breastbone. She could feel that she was dead. There was no safe way to remove the shaft, and her breath was leaving her with a second. Take the front, she said quietly, exhaling her last. Sure that her soul's parts would all go straight to Valhall for her life, her deeds, her love, her death. Skadhild. The plank of the bridge shook as Fitbjorn hacked down with his axe, cutting through a man and into the wood there. He pulled free the axe blade with little effort and held it in a reverse grip. He looked dead into the foe, still making for his place, and held firm without flinching a moment. He bled from 8 different wounds upon his skin and knew he couldn't carry on for much longer. He didn't need to kill them all. He just had to keep stopping them up here. There was no well. There is only longer. It was not a victory he fought for. That was not possible. This was only for the fight. And he would keep fighting no matter what was thrown onto him. The black-haired raider, the white bear, the wolf, the commander, the captain, the traitor, the lover, the warrior, the Varangian, the Viking of Stamford Bridge, fought with all the skill that he'd learned in a lifetime of warring. With a grunt, he slammed his fist and the haft of the axe into an Englishman and heaved him to the side and over the railing, throwing him down to the water below, where he splashed with a scream. He growled and looked back to the English there. The looks on the faces of the soldiers had changed. No longer did they look with the confidence of a battle won and at an obstacle yet to be bested. It was disbelief now, fear. He reveled in that fear. He was causing them. That is right. Fear me. Come if you must, but you will die. I am your fucking doom. He stood there, bloody, holding the axe and standing tall and firm. Ready. Come join the others in death if you must. I am ready to send you down, he said to himself. Are you ready to see which gods are real? He said to them. Then came another arrow, whistling through the air. He turned his body to the left and let it fly by him. His eyes were constantly scanning the air above the gathered enemy army, for he knew a single arrow could undo all his fight. The lull could not last forever, and so they renewed their charging, fresh soldiers coming to the front to meet with this crazed enemy they found themselves facing. Fitbjorn had not lost an inch of ground, and he'd not gained a moment of time. He but stood, ready, and let them come. There before him grew up a shield wall, 3 across for the narrow confine of the bridge, and more were forming behind them. The dilemma of the English was an interesting one. If they came too thick, they were killed, and were killed. They'd make a wall the others had to fight over, and be at a disadvantage. None were thinking so tactically, though. They simply threw themselves forward. The man to the left and center both readied their swords, and Fitbjorn took a purposeful step forward to interrupt their direction. They stumbled as they swung. At the same time, the man in the center accidentally hit his sword against the helm of the leftmost man, and that killed all the power of his strike. Fitbjorn stabbed with the top of his axe and caught the little English sword, which was eased by the hesitation of his ally's blade striking him. The axe being at his left side made it for a perfect posture to swing right hard and strike the rightmost man on the chain shirt. He didn't think he'd cut through anything, but he broke something important. The Englishman exhaled a deep breath from a lung that was now full and recoiled from the moment. The one in the middle growled in anger and frustration at his inability to do anything to stop this man from slaying his friends, and charged forward in his blindness of fury, his last mistake. Fitbjorn allowed a step back and brought the haft butt up to knock aside the man's shield. This, of course, didn't do enough to sway it out of the fight, but it distracted his action, and he pressed the momentary advantage with a brilliant strike on the man's neck. He didn't think it a killing wound, but so long as the man was out of the battle, it was enough. It had to be enough. Another arrow sliced through the outside of his shoulder, a little closer in, and it could have immobilized the arm. Further in still, it would have landed in his lung or heart. He hadn't seen the arrow coming, as it was from the right side. They were getting smarter, or luckier. Neither was good. He had to kill as many as he could. His whole life was in this fight. There could be nothing else. There was no way he'd be able to watch them all. He couldn't account for every plan they might concoct, though for the moment it seemed they were determined to keep running to his front and meeting the axe. He killed another with a quick cut to the face and sent the man over the side. That must make 30 now at least. If any of them float across and come up from behind me in the back, I am dead. Nothing I could do for that. Oh! Ah! I have to keep my eyes on these coming soldiers. If they come from under the bridge, that might be bad for me too. Why would they do that, though? His thoughts were a steady stream of tactical information wrought from a lifetime of battle wisdom. All flowed through him clearly as he kept forth in this fight. He could not allow himself a moment of lapse. That would mean death. Fortunately for him, though, the constant pressure of the enemy attack made his concentration impenetrable. There was no room for anything else to make its way into his consciousness, and he kept pressing and slaying. I cannot die. I will not die. I have to keep the fight. Gods, this blood is all I have ever needed. This is life. This is my life. Watch me, O great and horrid Aesir. See the grand lightness of my hugr. Watch how I have fucked and feasted and gifted and now fight. See the celebration of all my life in one place. See as I conquer the world. See me, Odin. Join me in the sight. May your battle ravens watch and report to you as I perform a feat greater than any this realm has ever seen. See me as I achieve this destiny. Skull. As he thought it, he realized this was it. The vengeance was gone. The oaths he'd made were all done. He met his fate. Now, this was where the weird webs of light had been leading. This was the woven strand of fate that he now completed, and this was glorious. The aggression of the wolf and the bear burned within him. Fitbjorn howled and roared and saw nothing but the bloody death and black fury of battle as he fought in a crazed fervor like nothing this isle has ever seen, like nothing this realm had ever seen. He slew another, one last stroke that clove the axe blade into his enemy's thigh and severed it there. Then he lifted the axe around the man's defense and drove the point into his neck. Another dead, one more. It always had to be one more. The army must have moved on by now, run for the ships or had the armor brought. In that moment, as the black-haired raider that was called the Fitbjorn thought of the love and the protection of his people, his fate meted him. An Englishman had jumped into a half-barrel, up the river holding a spear. He then used the spear to push himself down the Derwent until he went under the Stamford Bridge, and he stabbed up through the slats, praying to his God that he would strike the rapidly moving berserker there. And in the moment fated at birth, the spear met resistance. Fitbjorn felt the tip drive up through his breeches and saw the look of utter disbelief on the faces of the men before him. The soldiers stopped fighting, stopped attacking. They recoiled from him some. He then felt the energy bleeding out of him, slowly but inexorably. Fitbjorn gripped the axe as tight as he could, his father's axe, the bare spear axe, his axe. He would die with it in his hand, and looked down. His front was covered in blood spatter. He bled from a score of wounds. There were 2 arrows in him. When had that one hit his shoulder? The spear was retracted from his groin. He looked up from where he was, kneeling now. He breathed shallow, ragged breaths. The pain of a dozen deaths gathered together and hit him all at once. It was the most blissful and free moment he had ever felt. The flame of his life blazed stronger in that instant than he ever knew it could. This was his moment of destiny, fulfilled. He had done his part. He'd fought off all of England alone. Though to him it felt like he'd been fighting for mere moments, he had in fact been standing there immovable for an hour. He felt a hand touch his shoulder. Is that your father? The English army were walking past him. None dared strike at him. Some put their hands onto his shoulders as they walked. None had ever seen any that fought like this. They had all witnessed a miracle. They knelt there. He knelt there alone in the impossible silence of his dying breath, and he uttered one last word. The nameless raider, the greatest warrior who'd fought the greatest battle, whispered his own name for the first time in 30 years, and none heard him. Were there Valkyries coming to take his soul to the High One's table, though he wore no Valkynet? Would he meet his father and mother at that table for the great victory he had won here? Long had he been able to envision other places to see after death. Now he had killed and been killed from below. Perhaps that was the only place death could come for him. Such a warrior had none over him. Fitbjorn died as he knelt there, still upright, surrounded by victory and death. This fight was the last thing he knew, the only thing he knew. The darkness of death came over the nameless Varangian. The King of England then walked across the bridge, standing for a moment before the man. He knew not how to even account for a beast who could do as he had done this day. Such things were not spoken of in his holy texts or even their legends. This should not have been possible. Harold Godwinson looked down on a warrior who, even kneeling, stood taller and greater than any monarch in the world. No matter what victory he could achieve this day, this man had won far more legend for himself. That thought put ice into the king's heart. Olaf Haraldsson looked on at the bridge and saw the English coming across. Valiant as the man was, his fight was done now. Harold the king was engaged in organizing as well he could. There could be no victory here. But if he could draw the fight out, he might be able to make a surrender with terms of release. It was not his finest plan as king, but he knew it was the best chance his people had. My lord, that man, who was he? Asked the altar for the skald. I don't know. This isn't the time. We have to get ready for the battle now. The tax, though, that was the best thing I ever saw. He needed to get that man's axe. It had to have been magic. Needed to learn all he could about him. It was a fine fight. Who cares? He's dead now. We have to focus now. There was magic in the axe. Or was it the man? I have to write a song for that. Can't believe what I saw. I still have the Land Ravager. I still have Emma upon my flesh. Forget him. We fight this now. The English came to them then. The battle began and was fought. The last great disastrous fight of the Vikings. Harold and his men fought valiantly, bolstered by the impression left by the nameless Viking on the bridge. And they lost. Harold fought with his men, fighting as well he knew how to. As desperate as he was to fight at all, the king fought until an English arrow struck into his neck, above his chain shirt Emma, and threw him down, choking on his death. The king's men all stood shocked at his end. But for but a moment, they knew there was no retreat or surrender available here, and they fought on, the shield wall doing well as it could against insurmountable odd. They fought a hopeless battle with half the force of their enemy. But the lone berserker had fought a battle, dire battle. And he had won. After the inevitable defeat, the king's son Olaf met with the King of England Harold and begged for his life and that of his men. A deal was struck between them, and Olaf had to swear to the English king that no Norse would ever invade England ever again. With that oath taken, they were left to return to their ship. But of the 300 longships that were brought, only 24 were necessary to carry the survivors home. The battle was a cataclysm for the Northmen, except for the culmination of one moment that echoed through the minds of any who saw it. Epilogue. Listen well, my friends and family, and you I think I know. Listen to a tale of a fighter, unknown for but the might he'd show. Hearken to a tale of glory earned and a warrior bold. a warrior who could the whole of an army with his own axe hold. At Stamford fought and set about the English line. He threw all out. His axe was flying here and there, and bested each more than his share. While Harold led and watched away, thereupon he'd ever stay. He pushed against all English back, as fight he did with but his axe. 'Twas said there oft its magic made, so keen it was of haft and blade, and let the berserker keep the fight, that none could block its vicious bite. Once battle lost, and oath there heeded, from all our ships 24 were needed. The English pushed us well and gone, the rest oared to ferry our living home. Harold's son, this Olaf named, was quelled and won, and battle tamed. No Norse would raid in England, as went his oath. But these new kings were ill-fated both. The ground at Stamford will ever be washed white with Northman bones. Without their armor that was at sea, on our flesh their swords were honed. The winning arming of English make went to face the Norman force did take. Thereafter they made their way to the south, and came to this battle at Hastings' mouth. But there, in each the minds of they, even as they rallied and slay, the axe of the berserker still held its might. The berserker's axe still made its fight. In all the English camp they told, as while the king would each they scold, of the Vikings' magic that there was made, and to this talk no mind was paid. 'Twas William of Normandy, the one called Bastard, his victory won there came the faster, for all the victory won upon that ridge, 'twas for the berserker on the bridge. The crown of England passed upon, as the king from Wessex was slain and gone. It was there done, as we skalds sing, for the changing of the kings. The end. The end of the Varangian. By me. That's it. It's the end of the book. Thank you to any of you who have endured your way through all of this and seen all of it. Wonderful it was. I'm glad you've joined me. The nameless Viking on the bridge at Stamford, who stood alone against an army and held and fought and died. But he was not alone. For we who look back through history, we stand there with him. And the gods who looked down upon him, and the Vetar who were there with him, and the spirits in his axe, and his blood on his hugger, all the wolf spirit, and the warrior spirit, and the bear spirit that was in him. For all these things. Skål. I speak to you. Thank you for being with me in this. Skål. And goodbye.